It's Money Monday, a segment here at 4 o'clock where we talk about easy to understand ways to navigate our finances, which is often confusing. Here to help us out is our financial expert, Paul Hood from Hood CPAs. Paul, great to see you, my friend, back in person, looking sharp today.
Here we go.
We have some great questions that came in over this past week. Let's start with Scott. Scott says, my kids work and go to college. They have student loans in their names, but I'm making payments on them. Who can claim the tuition payment and student loan interest?
So, Scott, the answer to that is potentially two different people. The tuition payments, what Scott's talking about is there is a credit and or deduction for college tuition. It's whoever claims that person as a dependent. So Scott claims his kids, his child as a dependent, then he can take that credit or that deduction. As far as the interest, it's whoever's Social Security number it's in. So if the debt is the child's, Scott can't take it. If the debt is Scott's, then he can deduct the interest.
I think my father is still trying to claim me as a dependent.
Heck yeah.
At least did all the way up to the point that he was able to by law. Next question goes to Gary. Gary says, I'm getting divorced. When I file my personal taxes this year, will the only thing to change is filing as single? That's question one. This gets a little sticky. We also own a business together. Yikes. How should we separate the business? That's tough without having a lot of information on what kind of business that is.
Well, you know, I unfortunately deal with this a lot. So the answer to the first question is filing status. Typically, the IRS looks at one day, and it's December 31st. Are you married or are you single? If your divorce is not final, you have to file married filing joint or married filing separate. And there's pros and cons to both. A lot of times you don't want to file joint because if you file joint with somebody else, you're what's called jointly and severally liable for the taxes. So the IRS can come after you, either one of you, for 100%. So now there is an exception that if you have kids, then you've been separated for over 6 months of the year, the last 6 months of the year, you can file head of household. So that's a difficult thing. Now on the business, really, it depends on if the business is an entity, an LLC or a corporation. If it is, then that's simple. They each get a K-1. If it's a sole proprietorship, then you can do it as a joint venture and split the numbers 50-50. It really gets down to what the attorneys agree to.
Okay. Try to divorce before December 31st.
That's what you want.
Our last question comes in from Beth. She wants to know, what is the minimum amount of acreage and head of cattle needed to qualify as a farm? That's interesting.
Yeah, so the IRS, for any business to be put on your tax return, whether it's a farm or otherwise, you have to have a reasonable expectation of profit. So it's not really an acreage thing or the number of cattle, although that plays into that reasonable expectation of a profit. So if you have 5 acres and you have 1 cow and you're riding off 4-reelers and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to fly. So generally speaking, 20 acres with 5 or 6, head of cows, you could probably do okay. But it's that reasonable expectation of a profit.
Okay, so that's really not that much.
No.
A little bit of acreage, throw a little cattle out there and get
chickens on there, and you got
get those 4-wheelers going.
That's right.
All right, good to see you, Paul.
You too,
and if you have a financial question you'd like for us to chat about next Monday, you can send in your question right now to moneymondays@griffin.news.